If we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day. In other words, it's very unlikely that there is not life. The truth is that there are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet. And keep in mind, the probability is that there's something you would call life somewhere else.
Do you have a question for our guest this evening?
Yes, I do. With the recent release of Pentagon footage of unidentified aerial phenomena and things like Project Blue Book and ATIP and all of these various things, currently with the current information that's released, what's your viewpoint on what these objects that seem to defy all laws of physics are?
I also think it should keep us humble. There's a lot of stuff we don't know.
If I was president, the first thing I would do after putting my hand on that Bible and taking that oath to serve the country is I wouldn't even probably finish the oath. I would run to the White House. I'd demand to see all the classified files on the UFOs because I want to know. I'd want to know what has been going on. Did you do that?
Sort of. We had the anniversary of Roswell. There's also Area 51. You remember there was a great sci-fi movie where there was an alien kept deep under the ground? I had people go look at the records on Area 51 to make sure there was no alien down there. And people thought that because everybody who works there has to stop about an hour away and put on special clothing and then drive in and out. And that's because a lot of our stealth technology is made there. We know that now, but there are no aliens there. Then when the Roswell thing came up, I knew we'd get, gazillions of letters. So I had all the Roswell papers reviewed, everything. We know now we live in an ever-expanding universe. We know that there are billions of stars and planets literally out there, and the universe is getting bigger. We know from our fancy telescopes that just in the last 2 years, more than 20 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to be far enough away from their suns and dense enough that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that we're alone.
Oh, you're trying to give me a hint that there are aliens.
No, I'm trying to tell you I don't know. But if we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day, that it's a conflict.
Well, now we have friendly
Maybe the only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours. They're out there. We better think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened by a space invader. That's the whole theory of independence.
You're right.
That was the message of that movie Independence Day with Will Smith, and was, well, we're fighting each other all the time, but if all of a sudden space aliens attack us, the Russians and the Americans love each other. The Chinese can't wait to chip in. I mean, we're all, they're swinging the same bat. We shouldn't need that kind of external threat to do what is self-evidently right for the world.
And the questions that everyone always wants to ask the president. And you touch upon UFOs, and it's obviously that thing that everyone says, is that the first thing when you become president you ask about Area 51, the Roswell incident, all that. But of course, it's so present now because, of course, with all these different videos and different stuff that we're hearing about now, is this going to drive you crazy, Mr. President? People saying, what do you think now?
Well, my neighbors do that all the time. It's kind of like a part of I live in this little town, and Hillary and I went out to dinner last night. A couple from Maine was driving home, and they saw us sitting at this outdoor restaurant and stopped and came out and talked. I mean, that's part of the joy of living in an open society.
Every once in a while, the president will say, oh, I can't tell you about that. So he knows the truth about the aliens, but he can't tell you.
Can you give me a secret sign as to what might be happening? Just, you can't say anything, but you can nod or shake your head.
He's nodding.
If they weren't threatening the planetary existence, I would hope for their existence, because I think it might wake us all up and grow everybody up and stop focusing so much on our differences and figuring out what we can do together.
And maybe somebody's figured it out.
When will we, if we will ever know the truth about UFOs?
Well, I tell you, it's interesting that you said that, because when we celebrated the anniversary of that event out in New Mexico, I actually got all the government documents and read them, and I'm convinced there wasn't a UFO there. On the other hand, you shouldn't give up hope, because just a couple months ago, our government astrophysicist spotted a planet revolving around a star that's one of the closest to our solar system, that they believe has conditions close enough to Earth that it might contain life. Unfortunately, it's 20 million light years away, so we'll have to wait for them to come to us, and then we'll know the truth. That Rockwell thing is incited the interest of a lot of people, so when we had the anniversary of it, I actually went back and read the documents from the government, and I'm convinced that that wasn't a UFO, but who knows?
I'm glad to be joined by my science and technology advisor, Dr. Jack Gibbons, to make a few comments about today's announcement by NASA. This is the product of years of exploration and months of intensive study by some of the world's most distinguished scientists. Like all discoveries, this one will and should continue to be reviewed, examined, and scrutinized. It must be confirmed by other scientists. But clearly, the fact that something of this magnitude is being explored is another vindication of America's space program and our continuing support for it, even in these tough financial times. I am determined that the American space program will put its full intellectual power and technological prowess behind the search for further evidence of life on Mars. First, I have asked Administrator Golden to ensure that this finding is subject to a methodical process of further peer review and validation. Second, I have asked the Vice President to convene at the White House before the end of the year a bipartisan space summit on the future of America's space program. A significant purpose of this summit will be to discuss how America should pursue answers to the scientific questions raised by this finding. Third, we are committed to the aggressive plan we have put in place for robotic exploration of Mars. America's next unmanned mission to Mars is scheduled to lift off from the Kennedy Space Center in November. It will be followed by a second mission in December. I should tell you that the first mission is scheduled to land on Mars on July the 4th, 1997, Independence Day. It is well worth contemplating how we reached this moment of discovery. More than 4 billion years ago, this piece of rock was formed as a part of the original crust of Mars. After billions of years, it broke from the surface and began a 16 million year journey through space that would end here on Earth. It arrived in a meteor shower 13,000 years ago. And in 1984, an American scientist on an annual U.S. government mission to search for meteors on Antarctica picked it up and took it to be studied. Appropriately, it was the first rock to be picked up that year, rock number 84001. Today, rock 84001 speaks to us across all those billions of years and millions of miles. It speaks of the possibility of life. If this discovery is confirmed, it will surely be one of the most stunning insights into our universe that science has ever uncovered. Its implications are as far-reaching and awe-inspiring as can be imagined. Even as it promises answers to some of our oldest questions, it poses still others even more fundamental. We will continue to listen closely to what it has to say as we continue the search for answers and for knowledge that is as old as humanity itself, but essential to our people's future.
What's going to happen?
President Clinton, UFOs. You've been the president. You've seen all the info. Are they real? What do you know? What can you tell us?
The truth is that we've never proved one, but there are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet. And keep in mind, there are basically a billion galaxies in an ever-expanding universe. I mean, you can't even get your mind around the sheer number of things that are out there.
But you've seen them. You've seen the data.
Well, no one knows, but I think that the probability is that there's something you would call life somewhere else. I'd give anything to be 20 again. I'd give up having been president and gamble on my chances in the future if I could live another 80 or 90 years just to see it. It's amazing what's going to happen.